Okay, I think we have a jam-packed program, so perhaps we should get started and people rolling in later, they must just catch up. Welcome, everyone. My name is Suzanne Karcher. I'm co-founder and director of the African Circular Economy Network, and I'm leading you today through this ACEN-led webinar. Just some rules from the house. So please be so kind and introduce yourself, where you're coming from in the chat box, right? And as questions pop up in your head, if you can please drop them in the question and answer section. So not in the chat, but in the question and answer session. For now, everyone is muted, but we will give you your voice back in the question and answer session. So yeah, let's get the show on the road. Can I please see the next slide? The next slide, please.
Maybe it's slightly delayed, Suzanne. No, I think there's a delay. Yeah.
Thank you. So just to quickly summarize what we're doing today, I'm doing quickly the welcome. Then our CEO, Katharina Gehring from ACEN, will take us to a short introduction of ACEN in case you have not met us yet, which I think is almost impossible. And then we're really going into the meat. First, we're going to have Dr. Matthias Schlurp, who is the program director and director of the World Resources Forum Association, giving us an introduction about the global programs and activities that are related to e-waste. Then we will dive straight into what it means for South Africa in terms of the Circular Electronics Initiative. We will have a very exciting case study from some entrepreneurs here in South Africa that are actually making a very exciting product out of electronic waste. And I mean, that's obviously the best thing you can do in a circular economy, really product redesign and innovation. And then we will have time for question and answers, and then providing some closing remarks. So I think without further ado, Katharina, please get started and give us a short intro on ACEN, and keep on putting questions into the box. I'm gonna record those. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. I hope I'm audible. Please let me know. There is a thunderstorm rolling into Pretoria, so if you hear it cracking in the background, it's not me. So welcome, everyone. It's nice to see everyone today online, and I'm very excited to hear more about CEA. This has been a long way coming. So maybe just a bit about the African Circular Economy Network. Our vision is really to create a regenerative economic system, right? Not just from a production perspective, but really from a socio-economic perspective as well, to make sure we create prosperity for all the people that are actually living in Africa, as well as our environment. We are about 1,100 members. It changes every year, which is quite exciting. We are represented in 42 African countries, and we're really kind of the original circular economy network on the continent. We have been founded 10 years ago, even excitedly before the African Circular Economy Alliance, who we work with quite closely through the governments. And it's very nice to see how we can actually learn from all the different countries. Just something about ACEN, what we're focusing on. The first pillar is really around connection. So this is where really the network lies, and making sure we're creating this community. And that then immediately also impacts the second strategic priority around knowledge sharing, skills, and awareness raising. Circular economy, as Suzanne already said, goes much more beyond recycling, right? It's not just waste management. It's really around holistically thinking, how do you want to build our economic system? And then the third pillar, which is always the warning word, is saying transform, which I know is quite an ambitious word itself as well, because that means building long-term projects and programs on the ground that have the impact that we would like to see, which CEI speaks directly to. So this is just a quick overview about ACEN. With that, I'm going to hand over to Matthias. And thanks, Matthias, also for making yourself available today and having been such a good collaborator to ACEN throughout the last few years. Over to you, Matthias.
Thank you, Katharina. Thanks a lot for the introduction and also organizing this webinar for our CEI program. I quickly will share my slides. I think you should be seeing now my slides. Well, CEI, as you will see in the next slide, connects to a previous program, which was the Sustainable Recycling Industries program, which we have implemented together with the same countries and a few other countries. And this was already funded by the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO, from Switzerland, Swiss Confederation. It's implemented by quite a few partners. It's implemented in Egypt, Ghana, and South Africa. We, as the World Resources Forum, we are the overall responsible for the overall coordination. In Africa, we have ACEN, the organizer of this webinar, at the African Circular Economy Network, responsible for the implementation. In Ghana, we have the Ghana National Cleaner Production Center together with the Mountain Research Institute responsible for the implementation in Ghana. And in Egypt, we have the Sustainability and Innovation Hub, who is responsible for the implementation in Egypt. We also have, along with these partners from our partner countries, we have some more European-based partners, knowledge partners, technical partners, who were also previously involved in the SRI project, but also are running e-waste or circular electronics focus projects since many, many years. So that's on one side, DSS, Swiss-based DSS Plus company, that's the Eco Institute Consult GmbH from Germany, that's Eco Partner in Switzerland, Volutio, also based in Switzerland, and that's EMPA. EMPA I mentioned at the end because EMPA is also the starting point of many of a long-term engagement in this topic. As you see, the first Swiss e-waste program started, also funded by the Swiss government, started in 2003, so that's more than 20 years ago. And it was implemented in a 10 years framework together with different countries, including China, India, Colombia, and Peru. But you see there on the left side also South Africa. It was actually personally my first project, e-waste project in this area. So South Africa was actually part of this program from the beginning. South Africa disappeared a little bit from the scene, from the Swiss-funded scene in the Sustainable Recycling Industries program, which then started in 2013. But about half, so in the second phase of SRI, also South Africa was part of it again. Now we are in the phase of the Circular Electronics Initiative, which started last year, and you see now the focus countries are South Africa, Egypt, and Ghana. We have a kind of a generic setup for this program for all countries, the same. Of course, all countries are very different. They all have different needs, different realities, etc. But this is the areas we're working in. So the program outcomes, they focus on policy issues, appropriate institutional policy and legislative framework for e-waste that they are created and available in the countries. Then on normative standardization issues, that we have clear normative requirements and enforcement mechanisms available in the countries. Treatment, professionally functioning collection and treatment systems supported by businesses and consumers. And we also, and that's a little bit of change to previous focus, monitoring, that adequate monitoring of the triple-E value chain and waste chains are available. And this all serves actually to the overall impact, which is that we working on favorable framework conditions that enable the development of a circular, sustainable recycling industry for e-waste and related waste streams. And it's always based on the assumption when you have this kind of projects in different cultural environments, different conditions, that you rely on certain level of stability, commitment from partners, so political stability, commitment from partners on the ground, also political partners. Then also the economies. So we have, of course, changing raw material prices. We have changing conditions. Financing system is very important to have in the countries. Also responsibilities, that responsibilities are assigned. EPR is a topic which comes up in all these programs all the time, and also that we can build capacities in these countries. And I think all these countries, they fulfill these assumptions and conditions, and we were very positive over the past year that these programs run very, very well in these countries. That's just this typical governance setup, but I think what I want to highlight, it's not so important that you see there are program steering committees and there's a secretariat for it. I think it's important that you see these 3 countries, you have these outcomes of all 3 countries with cross-cutting topics. Which focus, for example, on informality, on trainings. TVET is also a cross-cutting topic, or circularity conditions. And all these things, as I said, we have these technical coordinators, these international partners, which are now not that familiar maybe with the realities in these countries, but which are really experts in the field for all these topics. So they support these projects. We also have typically, that's typically in our program, we have a knowledge component, which is kind of a little bit set apart, where it allows us also to upgrade all the knowledge we create for the international community of practice, do communications, and develop some other parts which are not directly connected to the countries. Now, this is not a ranking. I mean, we have to be careful when we present something like this. It's not a ranking. It represents the realities in these countries. We have come up over all these years as a kind of, so where is a country located? And this is important to understand where the country stays, to actually design the project, design the activities which are important in these countries to the needs of the country. So you see this on the left side, these are these 4 outcomes: policy, normative, collection, treatment, monitoring, and then you have this level. So the first level would be systems are working ad hoc, so meaning nothing is really organized. Level 2 is establishing a baseline. So we start to understand how things are working in a country and have maybe first system or basic system in place. Level 3 would be that we are already gearing up for improvement. Level 4 is that we have in place a full functioning system, and level 5, continuous improvement and outlook to the future. Now you see on the left side, like the light color is where we actually started in the previous program in Sri. And you see, like in this engagement means that you actually move up in this, let's say 3 to 6 year, you move up 2 levels, 1 to 2 levels in the development in a country. And you see that we are around level 3, gearing up for improvement with all countries in all these areas, maybe collection and treatment a little bit less, since we have lots of informality and maybe not controlled processes, and monitoring is something new which hasn't been in place in many countries. And where you see the dotted line with the arrow, this is actually our objective for the next or the coming 3 to 4 years, where we want to go. So going 1 to 1.5 levels up, so that we're actually getting to close to full functioning systems. This is the team. This picture was taken last year at the WRFA conference in Geneva. Is of course not representing everybody who is already working in that, but I think a lot of these people now really working on the project. Yeah, thanks a lot to the team, to all the engagement and all the good vibes. And with this, I can hand over again to Katharina.
Yeah. Thanks, Matthias. You hand over to me. That was amazing. That gave a good overview already. And now we will really drill into the South African specifics of the CEI project. And that will be delivered by Aisha, my colleagues Aisha Lotta and Paul Jones. So please.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and everybody on the call. I can see so many different representatives from different sectors, and it's really, that's what we're here to do, is launch this project and get as much room for collaboration as possible. So yeah, let's get started. We started off as the Sri Musketeers, the 3 of us in sustainable recycling industries, and now we want to move into this larger network of ACEN. So I was trying to figure out how do we shift the name. So I'm thinking something around sensei, and like looking towards mastering, because that's what a sensei is. A sensei is a Japanese martial arts. So perhaps maybe a little bit boisterous and adventurous, but yeah, maybe we're looking towards becoming senseis. So yeah, that's us, the three of us on the side there. The agenda today, we're really going to go through our achievements from the SHRI project, our lessons learned, and our intentions going forward. And then go into specifics around the Circular Electronics Initiative outcomes, what we plan to do here, and really an invitation again to everybody on the call to collaborate with us. Next slide, please. Okay, so our achievements thus far. We can be very happy to say that we've engaged at all levels when we speak about our spheres of government. We've done work at the national level, worked with the national policy, and set up the costing framework. We worked at the municipal level, and then we also really focused in on the eGov intervention strategy in Gauteng. So we're trying to filter down through all the spheres of government. Norms and standards, we have a really substantial suite of documentation around the norms and standards, guidance documents, and various handbooks for training and auditing. We also have a beginnings of a conformity assessment scheme. So that's really exciting to see. And the benefit of this continuous project is that we're just building upon the documents that we have, bringing them into life a little bit more. The things that we're standing upon within the business sector is that we have a great platform for general awareness, the WRFA website, which includes general awareness as well as the masterclass. We have various reports from business incentives, trying to understand what's out there in order to incentivize small scale businesses, but also how to set up that small scale business in terms of regulatory requirements and other hurdles for setting them up and getting them going. And then we have the achievements so far for hazardous fractions. It's really a deep dive into specifics. So we went into lithium ion batteries, solar panels, and WEEE plastics as focus areas. We did a series of webinars and workshops, and we have reports, all of which are available on the WRFA website as well as the SHRI website. Then in terms of the lessons we carry forward with us, this is something that we really want to say. We're building upon what we've learned previously. Very important with policy is, although policy sits at a high national level, it has to speak to grassroots realities, and that is just in the conversation. We constantly have to implement and see how to better implement and resource ourselves. Then we have the norms and standards. This wasn't the interesting massive learning was that we can't categorize tiers. We have to look specifically at activities and how do we within that specific activity integrate informal sector. So that's really fascinating to see how that integration works. Then we have also learned that we need time to get this into a mandatory format. So we have to move from a voluntary space, really do a lot of public engagement, and then move into the mandatory space. Business, we realized that we can't, it was a bit of a challenge to work with the CETAs. So we went forward and started our own masterclass, which you can see on WRFA, and it's been very successful. Lots of people have done the course already, so we're just seeing that grow. It's a little bit more accessible, and it's free, which is very nice. Then we also realized that we can't categorize businesses in the same manner. There's a economic variability there. People are dealing with different challenges on the ground. So for small scale economic e-waste facilities, we really had to kind of divvy that up and understand it. And that also kind of spoke to the challenges around incentives, where we had various different fragmented incentives that might not directly speak to e-waste, but be more kind of broad and general. And how do we actually start focusing in on e-waste management facilities? And then it was quite challenging navigating the hazardous fractions. Specifically, the definitions were challenging to navigate, and we are obviously dealing with different fractions that come with different HS codes, and it's difficult to also then understand the flows of what's coming in and what's going out. So it's important for us to carry these lessons forward with us. Next slide, please. And in that, our main aim for the CEI is to work at a systemic level and follow these systemic pressures. So we are going to focus a little bit more on renewable energy fractions. And I see some of you have mentioned lithium-ion batteries in the chat, and that's kind of part of what we want to continue working on. And focus on the circular economy, which is a deeply systemic focus. It's looking at the full value chain, the higher R options, that being rethink, reduce, and repair. We have a lot of work in repair that we want to do to make sure that the EPR fee kind of connects with that higher R options in the waste management hierarchy. And the reason we can do this is by strategic coordination. We can work with ACEN, which is a vast network, as you've heard, really excited about that. And we're going to work with our international technical coordinators who have expertise across the countries. And that's strategic intervention will come from the region of Africa, but also from our technical coordinators working hand in hand. Next slide. Okay, so outcome 1. I have the pleasure of going through all of the policy norms and standards with you, and then Paul will take you into treatment and the real like holding the stuff instead of thinking about the stuff and writing about the stuff. But I do think that these are very important interventions. So for our policy, we want to step forward into more implementation. We've got the draft. We want to get the WEEE policy steering committee up. We want to speak to different national plans that are coming forward. So we have the Circular Economy Action Plan, as well as the State of Waste report that's coming forward. We want to contribute to that and be a part of that in any way possible, supporting it, thinking from a circular electronics perspective. We want to engage more with the DFFE and the DTIC and create a kind of connection between them as well, helping bridge and enable certain discussions to go through, especially with regards to EPR and where to plug those EPR fees, which we really need to start kind of navigating, and that's why we're doing a lot of baseline research. So again, that's coming forward. Our baseline research will focus on e-waste policy implementation and e-waste asset release. So I think, asset release has been a real topic of discussion because a lot of our e-waste sits in departments. So the legal kind of channel to get that equipment out is something that we want to learn from other governments as well. And then the institutional actors, we really want to host an annual symposium, get people together, speaking about their research, speaking about their experience on the ground, and that will all inform our policy implementation processes, because we want to make sure there's these enabling, bridging moments where we can facilitate sessions of communication between everyone, and that's really where it's about, what it's about. Okay, normative norms and standards. Norms and standards is a really exciting outcome because it's the architecture of how we make sure we're doing the right thing. And it's a very technical and dense task, but I really think it's going to be an incredible baseline for us to make sure that we're all on the same level playing field. And the first thing we want to do is create a good understanding of what our current legal landscape is after 5 years of EPR. So we want to do that gap analysis, and we will have another webinar that engages on this very point. So watch out for that invitation, but we really want to get a sense of how has EPR been working for you in the past 5 years. And we're also going to go into various different strategies that focus on decontamination. So where do we put the fee? How do we make sure that it refers to more repair practices, more refurbishment practices, and not just bolstering existing recycling practices? With that in mind, we do need to strategize a little bit around our conformity assessment scheme it is a massive institutional architecture that we need to design. So we need to speak to a lot of different stakeholders that already have experience in conformity assessments, and really document the learnings from their perspective. And this would include SABS, this would include our national regulator for compulsory specifications or accreditation systems. All of these associations, it's definitely going to take a bit of time, but we're excited to tackle this process, and hopefully everyone here would be interested in participating and sharing research and good practice. We really do want to focus on repair and refurbishment and include that in our updated version of our norms and standards. And in that, we'll have more training sessions as well. We did already have training sessions, but we want to get out there more, get into different facilities. We want to look at the far specialized treatment facilities, but also visit scrapyards. We want to get a full comprehensive sense of what facilities look like that receive e-waste and how they process them, and then facilitate more of a circular economy process, which is also going to take a bit of research and time, but again, very exciting. And I know that there are already some industries here, industry players. If you want to get on board with that, have one-on-one conversations with us, that would be really, really fantastic. Auditing bodies, yeah, we really want to get industry, and what we mean by industry is really everyone that's involved in the repair, refurbishment, recycling of e-waste, and get them on board for this level playing field to make sure that we're technically sound and we're safe occupationally. We plug in the people at the right place, and make sure that then we also have auditors to follow up and bring forward new novel research and guide the industry as we go forward. So that's the train the trainer model that we'd like to see as well. And then lastly, it's really just exposure to international practices, sharing mechanisms. And when I say best practice, I kind of put it in brackets because a lot of what we do on the continent is incredibly novel and incredibly like, the knowledge system that we already have, we want to build upon. And we can build upon that by sharing and exchanging ideas. And that's the last section there, is just getting that international exchange and that regional exchange, which is where ACEN also sits very firmly in my mind. So that is the documentation, the policy, and the norms and standards. So if there are any questions that I find and see in the chat, I'll answer them. But yeah, very, very exciting work. And I hope that this prompts a little bit of collaboration with everybody else. Yeah, Paul, you can go to the next slide. Yes, and there are two pictures of us, one at the training from last year and one at the ITU exchange that happened last month. And it's really showing that we're here to speak to as many people as possible and bring training down to whatever level needs to be trained, essentially. So if you want any more one-on-one discussions, please, on the policy and the norms and standards, reach out to me and Suzanne. And yeah, really looking forward to getting started with all of these ideas and projects. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Aisha. So I'm just going to run you all through the last two outcomes, so outcome 3 and 4. So as Aisha has presented, outcome 1 deals with policy and outcome 2 deals with norms and standards. So how do we kind of put the rules and regulations in place and the systems in place to enforce policy? Outcome 3 speaks more towards collection and treatment. So this kind of starts to hone in more on businesses, organizations, institutions involved in that kind of value chain of electronics on the ground. And there are 5 outcomes, and I'm just going to briefly run through them, and we will share this presentation and we will have more detailed documents to share with interested parties. But essentially, the first output is around collection quite specifically. And the 2 initiatives that we're going to focus on under collection, The first one is around buyback center and scrapyard baseline assessment. So what we have noticed around the collection space is that there's a bit of a missing link in our understanding of what's happening in the broader collection space, and that's around what's happening at buyback centers and scrapyards. And we understand some of the sensitivities around this and some of the challenges that are faced around that. But what we do want to do is try and map and understand what kind of e-waste or EEE flows are happening through buyback centers and scrapyards. So one of the areas we're going to focus on is partnering with PROs, recyclers, and other organizations to try and understand where the flow of e-waste is going. We understand from a PRO perspective, we understand from a recycler perspective, but we really want to try and get in touch with what's happening at buyback centers. We know that a lot of e-waste is ending up at buyback centers, whether they're smaller, more informal buyback centers or even more established buyback centers. We don't have that kind of data. So we want to map that data as a first step. And then that will lead into the next activity of ours, which is a broader e-waste collection mapping study. So that's going to dig a lot deeper into what is the value chain, who are the different stakeholders that are at play, what data exists, what are those flows within South Africa, and then trying to specifically understand what are the major gaps or hotspots within that value chain, and how do we propose specific interventions that can help, and even pilot projects that can help plug some of those gaps. So that's particularly the collection output. When it comes to recycling and data protection, our focus is going to be twofold. The first is going to be around waste picker and reclaimer interventions. So we're developing, and actually this is at an advanced stage, an income opportunity report, which looks at opportunities for waste reclaimers and waste pickers within the e-waste space. So what are those opportunities? And we want to convert those opportunities into potential pilot projects, along with identifying other kinds of pilot projects that we can that are being driven by PROs, for example, or recyclers or other organizations. And we want to try and document those pilot projects. So essentially develop a blueprint which says, within the waste picker space, these are a couple pilot projects that have been identified. This is how they unpacked. These are the different stakeholders, and this is how a similar model could be replicated at a national level in South Africa. So ultimately, it's about creating knowledge and case studies around pilot projects and helping document that in a blueprint that can be used by various other stakeholders to replicate similar types of pilot projects. So output 3.1 and 3.2 are closely linked. And we kind of start to see there an opportunity for nice packages of potential projects that can be replicated throughout the rest of the country, speaking to e-waste collection, how the informal sector is integrated, for example, how recycling is done, but especially focusing on reuse and refurbishment as well. So that's something that we didn't do in the SHREE program, and it's something that forms quite a big part of this CEI program now. Around hazardous fractions, we want to do research on viable solutions that exist globally, but that can be localized in South Africa. So we want to use international research support, but we also want to draw down on specifically just energy transition focus. So it's things like lithium-ion batteries, solar PV, for example. Those are some of the fractions that we're going to focus on. Around capacity building, which is output 3.4, we're going to focus quite a lot on waste picker training. So we'd like to co-develop and facilitate train-the-trainer type of training course with SALPA and Arrow. And that's going to be a kind of key focus. And we've already had some initial discussions with these organizations. And obviously, we'll do a bigger call to all other organizations and partners that want to be part and parcel of this. But essentially developing training material that can be used by SALPA and Arrow to further train and educate waste pickers, for example, in how to deal with e-waste when they come across it as part of their collection processes. We're also then going to be supporting the National Business Initiative in their installation, repair, and maintenance program. So that program has just won Jobs Fund funding, and it's going to be looking at establishing hubs at TVET colleges across South Africa, and we're going to be supporting them specifically around the electronic waste recycling refurbishment process as part of that. And finally, around 3.5, enabling business environments. We have been approached by recyclers to assist establish an e-waste recycling industry association. So we will be starting a process of engaging more broadly with recyclers in the industry and setting up an industry association that we as CEI will be secretariat for until such time that it can be formally adopted and taken over by industry. And finally, continuing with the We Are South Africa website and awareness activities as part and parcel of our websites and social media platforms, leveraging the Circular South Africa as part of the ACEN network. So I'm sorry, I'm shooting through this because we're limited in time. But then outcome 4 is monitoring. So whereas outcome 3 speaks quite specifically to interventions around training, collection, recycling, outcome 4 is looking at monitoring. And this is something that in South Africa we don't have a good handle of when it comes to specifically electronic waste, but also WEEE as a whole. So the broader electronics value chain. And we split it into 3 stages, essentially. The first is around import and production stats. So we want to develop a comprehensive baseline of electronic flows in South Africa. What are we importing? What's being produced locally? Where is that going? And that is the first step that's going to then lead into a more detailed baseline value chain. So at that point, we're going to do a comprehensive analysis of data systems that exist in South Africa. So, for example, DFFE has SAWIC. What data is collected there, who's feeding that data in, who are the owners of that data. We want to then identify what other, the PRO reporting systems, what data is collected, who's gathering that data. And we want to identify and map all of those data systems to understand where the pain points, who are the stakeholders involved, and where are the major gaps, because we know that these systems are not speaking to each other at present. Through that baseline assessment, that'll help us understand what are the frameworks and procedures and processes that we need to put in place to ensure that we have data interoperability. So how is data speaking to each other across all of the stakeholders, across all of the systems? And that will feed into output 4.3, where we want to develop a framework with standard operating procedures to say, okay, how should we be collecting data? How should data be verified? How do we ensure quality assurance? Who's reporting on data? Who's monitoring on data? And that will come with recommendations to say, for example, to the national departments, in order to ensure that SAWIC is up to date and has the latest production stats, SARS needs to have, you and SARS needs to be communicating about X, Y, and Z. PROs and recyclers, you should be reporting on data this way, and that should feed into the system, the national system, through these channels. So we're hoping through this process to really try and firstly understand what data there is, who's got the data, where is it flowing, and then secondly, try and develop a framework for how these systems can speak to each other better, so that we have after these 4 years, we have a very strong idea of how all of this data should communicate with each other. And hopefully we have a single portal where all this data is flowing, and a much better idea of, imports, exports, waste that's being WEEE that's being put on markets, a WEEE that's being recycled, refurbished, sent to landfill, and that's all in one place. So yeah, again, a call for an invite for you to collaborate with us. Our details are at the bottom there, and yeah, we're very much looking forward to this next 4 years and collaborating with everyone, and yeah, working to create a more sustainable, circular electronics system in South Africa. Thank you. I'll leave that up for a second because it's got our details.
Thank you so much, Paul. Awesome. Everyone is very good on the time side. And I will actually make sure that I'm not standing between that. So Dante and Joshua, tell us how it's done. Innovative product design, circular product design from e-waste. And this is such a smart idea. When I met you two, I was so impressed. And I said, one of the first webinars that we're going to do under CEI, I want you on. And it's actually our launch webinar. So please, I think that innovation that you have speaks to our launch. So please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and hello everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Dante. I'm the CEO and co-founder of One More Time, and this is Josh.
I'm Josh. I'm the CTO and co-founder of One More Time.
Yeah, so what we do is One More Time is it started off as a bit of a product company, but we've gone a bit multimodal. Essentially, what our focus is we kind of solve a lot of gaps in the recycling industry through engineering, design, and data. We have three big focuses at the moment. We are a recycling company, a pretty traditional one. We take feedstock, we recycle it, we issue certificates of destruction, and obviously we recycle it in compliance with the client's needs. We're an engineering company, and we create new products out of the recycled products. We create recycling techniques. We create machinery and tools that enable recycling or enabling the recovery of recycled materials. And finally, we're also consultants. We specialize in consulting on EPR compliance and LCA assessments. So a lot of the clients we're dealing with deal with all three sections of our business. We recycle for them, we make product out of their recycled goods, and then we help them get EPR compliant and handle all their EPR kind of needs. I'm going to talk through each part in a bit more detail, just so you can kind of see what we do of it. So OMT recycling, a big focus for us right now is the vaping industry. I think what we started with is we kind of saw that there's a lot of different industries that need recycling reform, but the specific big one that people seem to miss was vaping, specifically because there's a class of product in the vape industry called a single-use vape, and that's a vape that can be used once and then is thrown away. And that class of product, I just don't think anyone assessed how really bad it was and how much of a scale it was. In South Africa alone, we're seeing probably about 1 million sticks sold a month, and that's 1 million lithium-ion batteries are heading to the landfill. So where we kind of assess is we saw 1 million batteries. Batteries are very valuable. And of course, because these are single-use devices, these are essentially brand new batteries. So we built some custom testers through the engineering departments, and we started running tests. And you can see there, we're looking at about a 91% pass rate on those lithium batteries we're getting from the single-use vapes. And if we compare it to some of the other batteries that we source from EVs or just plain 18650s, you can see the pass rate's quite high because it's basically a brand new battery that's coming out of these single-use vapes. It's quite a sizable problem. Obviously, when you have 1 million of these sticks in South Africa alone, you start to see things like this. We were sent this from one of our collaborators, asked if we could recycle this, and that is probably about tens to, if not 100,000 lithium batteries sitting in a pile, which is extremely dangerous and extremely scary. The assumption of what happened here, unfortunately, is that the person who was recycling these had more of a focus on the metal than the lithium batteries. And so the metal was salvaged from the vape, which is great. But again, we don't have proper techniques to process those lithium batteries. Currently, the best techniques we have is leaching or grinding, where what we've got is we've got a direct refurbishment path for these lithium batteries. So they don't end up in a pile like this. This is kind of the products we receive a lot. These are specifically the metal tubes, but again, we receive tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of just random different kinds of vapes, whether they come in plastic shells or metal shells. And it kind of comes to us to develop the processes for extracting as much value from that entire product as possible, not just the battery or the metal or the plastics.
Some of these vape devices are like quite advanced. Like some of them have screens and like Bluetooth.
PCBs.
There's a remarkable how much technological value just gets turned into a thing that is meant to go straight to the landfill.
Absolutely. The next thing that we focus on is our engineering department. So in our engineering department, we do quite a few cool things. The most successful to date is making products out of these batteries. This is our One More Night. This is a power bank that's made out of 6 vapes. We've intentionally made, it's kind of our flagship. We've made it quite stylish and quite poppy. It's very popular amongst youth and with trendy individuals. And the whole point of that is to show that it's not just a matter of we can get lithium-ion batteries, but it's a matter of we can create market around those lithium-ion batteries. There's no point in having 100,000 cells sitting in our office, regardless of how good they are, if no one has a use for them. So a big thing we do with the engineering department is finding value for those lithium-ion cells, either through our own range of products, like the One More Night and the soon-to-release One More Week, but also through collaborations with other brands. There's just some stats about our own brand. We've done a collaboration with Cape Union Mart, with Lush Cosmetics, with several other large brands on either creating white label products for them out of single-use vapes, or just supplying them batteries for their range of products. So in this case, we've got a power bank that is on sale currently at Cape Union Mart. Please go buy one. And a torch currently on sale at Cape Union Mart. And again, these are both made from various recycled materials. On the power bank, it's the battery and the vape shell. On the torch, it's a vape battery, a vape shell, and even magnets in the torch are recycled from vape. So it's all about showing that the recycling is not only viable, but actually cost effective, because a lot of these products came in under the cost of their relative competitors on the market. So not only is this a win for Cape Union Mart in the sense that it's sustainable, but it's a win that these are going on market cheaper than the other ones in store, which means that they're quite viable as well. A big thing we do as well is, of course, part of the engineering department is building the tools that enable recycling to take place, right? So we couldn't put a lithium battery on market if we haven't tested it to make sure it's actually safe and to get our test results. So a big thing that we do is create these tools that enable the recycling to take place. So we've got our lithium ion tester, we've got an 18650 scraper and extractor, various tools that we've either purchased or are busy developing ourselves in the case of our lithium ion battery tester, that log and have full traceability of all of our different tests and products. That kind of speaks to the next big thing is our database. So every single product that comes through our office, whether it's a vape or a recycled EV or whatever it may be, gets logged into our database fully. So here's an example of one of the most common vapes we get. This is the Airscream AirPop 3 mil. And when we receive more than 1,000 of these, we log it. And we log it from a 3D scan of the finished product to the weight of the finished product to each individual component found inside, as well as the various materials and the various weights. So if I need to know right now, I can have a full material and weight breakdown of this exact vape, which means when I have a box of 100,000 sitting in the warehouse, I know exactly how many kilograms of ABS plastic, how many kilograms of aluminium, and how many individual lithium cells, as well as the pass rate of those lithium cells inside that product.
And also an understanding of the kind of EPR burden associated with, or like this eco-modulated view of the product.
Yeah, so I mean, the database kind of feeds to all areas of the business. You know, our engineers are able to pull, like, say for example, we need to find some wires or some magnets or some batteries or some metal tubes. We go through our own database and say, oh, we have 11,000 of this really cool metal tube. Let's use it for something, either in the product development or on the consulting side. You know, if Airscream is a client of ours and we need to do an LCA report, we need to get them EPR compliant, we have a full breakdown of all their products, and generating that very accurate forecast and EPR report becomes very viable for us, takes the weight off of that company, and helps us supply the PRO with something that's extremely accurate and extremely easy for the PRO to handle as well. You know, when it comes to EPR compliance, it's a burden on the PRO and it's a burden on the producer. So we step in to help both parties.
Yeah, exactly. I think right now the state of play for EPR, and for a lot of companies, it's quite opaque and quite difficult to navigate. And also, like, if you're a company that has a lot of SKUs and you deal with a lot of individual products, it can be a huge burden to have to go one by one through those thousands of products, classify it, what is it, what feeder category does it fall into, and so that's also a problem that we are kind of trying to solve.
We're going to get to that in a sec. Just very quick, some other things that we store in our database. So the database isn't just the products, the LCAs. It's full traceability on every test we run, every component we get. So any product, any battery, anything that comes out of our database and goes on sale to a consumer has an ID that's fully traceable. That ID can be scanned and you'll find out who disassembled the product, who tested it, what the test results were, and why it was deemed safe and possible. So that full traceability and logability is really important to us because we need to build trust with consumers when it comes to recycled goods. The last section we'll talk about really quick is our consulting. Unfortunately, we have to skim through a few things that were exciting. The consulting division is something we're extremely inspired about. And again, this kind of steps in where EPR compliance is so important. And as we know, only a fraction of producers are EPR compliant. So we're trying to force as many EPR compliant and as many companies as possible to get EPR compliant. And a big part of doing that is making it as viable and as easy as possible. Like we said before, getting EPR compliant, especially on companies with over 1,000 SKUs, is a huge burden on the producer to do it correctly, and then a huge burden on the PRO to vet they didn't just make up numbers or they've misassessed it, especially when some of the EPR legislations can be a bit
Open-ended.
Open-ended, a great way of putting it. So what we do is we step in and we assist, and we make it as easy as possible.
And we also kind of develop frameworks for ourselves to understand how these things should be dealt with. Yeah, I mean, just to touch quickly, we also have this project that we're working on right now, which is a camera bin, which is able to kind of, using computer vision, assess what vapes have been deposited when, and kind of determine the value ahead of time of a particular bin. Also, detect a certain fullness of the bin in order to be able to order itself a weigh bill to kind of solve some logistic problems around getting, shipping these things around the country.
Yeah, I think we're about to go over time, and I think we're two people who could talk forever. But yeah, so essentially what we do at one more time is we look at solving different recycling and sustainability challenges with strong engineering, strong data, and strong design, and we kind of put a new lens on some of those problems. So there's quite a few cool projects we have going. We'll be launching a new website soon where you can see all those kind of fun projects. And yeah, if anyone wants to chat further, we're always open to meetings. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. This really excited me. Thank you so much for this presentation. Really circular innovation at its best. I wrote it in the chat. So now we have still a bit of time left for questions and answers. And Katarina, I saw you already started typing something. Yes, please give them a warm round of applause. Katarina, you want to ask your question because it's also a question that interests me. So please, we go ahead with you, and then we can just open the mics for everyone, and you guys can just raise a hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, guys. I think this is such a great presentation. So first, I have a question which is maybe more related to the vape industry itself, how they make actually money from single-use vapes if there's so much value sits in them. So I assume they push for quantity to sell them. So I see that a lot at festivals nowadays where they're being pushed forward, because I was wondering how they actually then make a profit, because most of it is also imported, I assume, to South Africa and other African countries.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what happens is, the biggest question I get is why not use a single-use battery in these single-use devices? And I think the fact of the matter is just that the ability to, I think it's definitely, as you said, volumes of scale. And then there's also the fact of that a lot of these lithium batteries are mass produced for other products anyway. So jumping on board on that production stream for 100,000 units or whatever, it just ends up being very viable. And I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to these producers whether or not it's meant to be a recycled or reused device. The fact is it works. And the other thing that's kind of interesting about the vape industry is it's got a very quick turnaround time. I don't think they're building products for long-term and growth. It's, as Josh said earlier, there's some very interesting products that kind of come out of nowhere. You see vapes with touchscreens on them. I don't think those products are built to have, a second and third version. They build them as quickly as they can. And often that means using off-the-shelf components. I want my vape to have a screen in it. I'm going to pull a bunch of cheap smartwatch factories into this, and we're going to start making a vape with a screen in it. So we often see that there isn't a proper production thought into these products. It's more just how can we get this version out quickly and then A/B test it and then release the next one,
Yeah, I mean, it is remarkable how cheap these devices are. It's insane that you can get a lithium battery and a circuit and everything all together for aluminium all together in the country, imported for just over 100 Rand shelf
retail.
And it's even a fairly high margin product, and it's popular because it's convenient because you don't ever have to refill it. It also kind of plays into the psychology of someone who is flirting with the idea of being a smoker. If you get yourself a reusable vape, then you're someone who vapes. But if you just buy single uses, then you can tell yourself that it's just this time.
No, I think this is quite interesting to understand the psychology behind it. But interesting, especially because lithium is one of the rare metals and minerals that we are.
I think it also kind of I think what we find very scary is this is definitely a first in its class product. I don't think we've ever seen a product that's intentionally limited itself. We had reusable vapes before we had single-use vapes. It's not like it's a design or engineering constraint. It's an intentional design into the products, and it's going to kind of mark the potential future where we see more industries saying, I could make this a reusable product, but actually consumers do have taste for single use, whether it's single use headphones or who knows what we'll see next. But it's definitely a dangerous stepping stone in the e-waste department.
Yeah, the closest thing I can liken it to is single disposable cameras. It's a kind of a similar thing where it's like it is actually a reusable camera. It's just been sealed shut, so you can't reuse it. But like those are slightly better because you take it back and then they reuse the shell, and you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Whoa,
Super interesting.
that was
Thank
really,
you.
for me, a steep learning curve. I mean, 91% pass rate for lithium-ion batteries from vapes. It should be really on the agenda of anyone, any recycler to recover those with such a prospect of, you know, having still functional lithium-ion batteries. Yeah, I'd like to take more questions. Please, anyone, you are all unmuted now, hopefully. Keith, I think you lit up. Hello, Keith. No, you must unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. Hi. Yeah. Thanks very much for the presentation to everybody, and the contribution, and ACEN for raising the awareness. It all helps at the end of the day. And hi, Matthias. I see your picture. It's been a long while since we spoke. Nice to see you. Dante and your guys. Good to see the efforts of our collaboration paying off. So we look forward to continuing the good work together. Well done to you guys. The point that I want to make is, so I think it's a great presentation. I think you're doing some really, really good stuff, and that's good. The danger that I see is that, as they say in the classics, too many cooks spoil the broth. So we have to be careful that there's too many people running around doing similar things, sometimes not always giving the same advice and the same information to parties, and that's potentially problematical. So you spoke about collaboration. That's definitely the way to go forward. I then extend an invitation for you guys to come and speak to PASA. PASA is the Association of PRO South Africa. Of the four, there are only 4 current electronic PROs that comply in terms of the department. 3 of those are members of PASA. The 4th one is in a work in progress, so that we can have a look and collaborate where possible to ensure that there's consistency going forward, because there are some red flags. But overall, well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. We definitely accept your invitation and are very happy and keen to hear more about PASA. Tulani, your hands up.
Hi, everyone. My question goes to Dante Romega and his partner. I'm interested in your testing equipment. Is it already available for commercial use, and how much is it if it's already available?
Unfortunately, right now our testing, our lithium tester is still in the R&D phase. I think what we found is, you know, we've got several working models downstairs. The lithium. There's definitely a standardized lithium cell that we can test very effectively and very quickly. You know, our big goals were, you know, we're looking at like an amp hour, 1 hour to test 1 amp hour, typically, and that's just unacceptable in the recycling industry. So a big focus of ours has been experimenting with some more AI-driven testing techniques for the cells, as well as just more heavy data from the cell. What is the temperature during testing? Where are the dead spots in the cell? So we're currently we've got a working prototype. We're currently in the phase now where it's just a matter of making it more recycling center friendly. Things like multiple chemistries, whether it's if you're, you know, what stops someone from incorrectly adding a lithium iron cell, a lithium iron phosphate cell, and then putting it into lithium ion mode and then overcharging it and damaging it. So a big thing for us right now is, first we want to build up that database so we have a record of pretty much what types of cell all e-waste have, and then that database feeds into our tester, which allows the tester to just perform more safe. But yeah, thank you so much for your interest. It definitely will be available shortly, and it is going to be available commercially. It is substantially cheaper than anything available internationally, and we'll definitely keep you abreast of when that product is ready for commercial use.
Thank you so much. Yeah, is there any questions for the CEI project? Perhaps since we have launched it today, it would be nice. And again, this is a call out to anyone. We have developed a very big, very detailed project document, which we will obviously not share in this entire extent. But if there's anything that resonates with you from what you heard today, and you will get the slides so you can have a look again, and you say, oh yeah, baseline research of scrap yards, one PR already indicated that's something really interested. Put up your hand and we quite happily supplying you with more detailed information for each of the proposed deliverables that we want to do over the next 4 years. So that's just one thing from my side. I take one more question. Anyone? Looks like everyone knows everything. Okay, great. Oh, Katerina, your hand is up. Sorry.
Yeah, I think maybe more a general question to Matthias around the CEI project, because I think people ask Dante so many questions, or the team so many questions, because that's very understandable, right? It's very easy to kind of wrap your head around. It's a product, we make something cool new out of it. While with obviously CEI, it's very complex, right? That's what Aisha said. It's like the systems approach to a very complex value chain. So I think my question to Matthias is like, I think MPAT has the knowledge component around that. How can we make sure we break it down so that it's kind of digestible for everyone in this project, also the audience that's online, because I see also SMEs online as well. So I think that would be really interesting for me to see how we can make sure this knowledge is available to everyone. And beyond South Africa, and I think Nigeria.
Yeah, thanks, Katharina. Yeah, there's a knowledge component. It's actually run by WRF. EMPA is more on the scientific part, on the monitoring, focusing. But that's completely okay. I mean, in the knowledge part, all the partners are somehow involved now. Yeah, I mean, I just want to highlight one example from the SRI. In the Sustainable Recycling Industries program, based on all the experience we had from previous program, working together with you guys in Africa and developing all this knowledge. You also said there are different countries involved in this project. Different countries, actually, we learn from different countries. I remember actually Colombian people coming to South Africa. And I'm not sure if Keith actually also, I know Keith also since the beginning of when I was involved in South Africa. You saw this timeline of 20 years. I think that's probably why we all got our gray hair in the meantime. I think also Keith was involved in Colombia. Maybe he visited even in Colombia. So that's how we organize this exchange. I mean, that's one part, that we organize this exchange. The other part is that we produce global public goods. And one thing was, for example, that we somehow organized our knowledge around informal sector integration about circularity and put this into a standardization process. This is the ISO 59014 in the Circular Economy series, which I think is the first ISO process actually including informal sector issues in a standardization process. So that's it's maybe also theoretical, but in the other end, it's also very practical and digestible. We also prepare documents which we presented on our website, sustainable-recycling.org. No, that's the old one, circular-electronics.org. We present this in a quite large library where you also can access the knowledge.
Wonderful.
That's wonderful. Thanks. Because Susanna, what I see so many like other African countries online that are not part of the CEI project. And I think this is what makes me excited from an ACEN perspective.
Yes.
Because I think there is so much insight from this entire project that other African countries really, really need. So I think that's where, Matthias, I'm getting really, really keen to see how this will unfold and how we then can connect the different stakeholders to this project.
Absolutely. And I saw you send a form, so if you can fill that out, just you want to quickly say what this is all about, just to take your details, or what is this?
This is just for the webinar, so to rate our webinar basically, but if you obviously want to stay connected with ACEN, just hop onto our website and join the social media. It's super easy. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and our time is up. I think it was a very rich conversation, and I want to thank all the participants and all the attendants, and Tut since, and yeah, I hope we'll see you soon, and goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.